Now, sadly, the basic knowledge of our shared American history, including your stories, these amazing stories that each of you have, are not being taught to our kids in school, and they're not being learned by Americans. Last year, the Annenberg Public Policy Center, and the Annenbergs were big supporters, as you know, of this foundation, this library, conducted a civic knowledge survey, and it found that 37% of the respondents couldn't name one of the freedoms guaranteed in the First Amendment of the Bill of Rights. Less than 1 in 4 of the respondents could name the religious freedom was one of the freedoms protected in the First Amendment of the Bill of Rights. Only 26% of the respondents to the survey could name the 3 branches of our government. So, describing these results of the study, the Center's director warned, "We are unlikely to cherish, protect, and exercise the rights if we don't know we have them." Our children and our grandchildren are not learning the principles and values that sustained you in those long nights and those long days in that faraway land. Now, the Nixon Foundation is working to change that, and the Nixon family is working to change that. And so tonight, I'm pleased to announce a $40 million American Civics Campaign to revive the teaching and understanding of civics and American values in our country. The American Civics Campaign will ensure that the Nixon Library remains an active center for the study of America's heritage and our role in the world. And contributions to the campaign will fund, among other things, the following: the construction of a hands-on education center that will use simulations. We've got to have a little interaction and online learning these days to teach about our Constitution and the extraordinary system of government that our founding fathers gave us, that Senator Carper talked about. The construction of a magnificent special exhibition hall that will be here on the library premises. We've got a nice small hall now. We're going to have a wonderful 15,000 square foot hall that will host visitors from around the world. We'll build a presidential transportation pavilion to permanently house Marine One. Marine One's a great, I had the privilege of flying on Marine One. I know others in the room have. We've got a great Marine One here. It flew President Johnson, President Kennedy, President Nixon, but it's gotten a little wear and tear in the weather. We're going to build a beautiful pavilion to house Marine One, and it'll be a teaching space as well. It'll also house the President's armored Lincoln Continental limousine, which we call the Beast. So I'm happy to tell you we already have $26.1 million in pledges towards our $40 million goal. The government of Qatar is providing half the campaign's entire target with a $20 million gift. Qatar's generosity commemorates the 50th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between the United States and Qatar. And earlier this year, as many of you know, President Biden designated Qatar as a major non-NATO ally of the United States. Now, this 2023 step shows President Nixon's foresight regarding this Gulf ally back in 1972. Again, Nixon, it's 50 years later, and Nixon's in the headlines because of the relationship that he established with the Emir, with a family member and a close family member of the ambassadors. So the Nixon Foundation will name the special exhibition hall for the state of Qatar in recognition of the soaring diplomatic relations between our nations. The state of Qatar and His Highness the Emir are represented this evening by His Excellency Sheikh Michel bin Hamad Al Thani, Qatar's ambassador to the United States. Sheikh. Let me take just a moment and tell you, Michel is not just a colleague, he's a friend. And of note tonight, I can disclose that Ambassador Al Thani was personally involved in the events leading to the freeing of an American hostage named Jeff Woodkey, who'd been held for many years in Mali. And so, Michel, thank you for your, not only for the contribution of Qatar, but for your efforts on behalf of American hostages and captives around the world. We sincerely appreciate Barbara and Alex Bowie, longtime supporters of the library, for their pledge of $3 million that will go to the construction of the transportation pavilion. And over the past several years, and friends of the library have gotten to know them well, Ling and Charlie Zhang have been very generous donors of the foundation, including the support for tonight's event and the music that was provided here for us, which is, by the way, the music was just terrific. Thank you. Now, on Monday, Charlie, who's a board member and a good friend, informed Jim Byron and me that he and Ling would make a further contribution of $2 million to fund the construction of the Transportation Pavilion. So, now, I will say this was over lunch, and Ling wasn't with us. And so I said, Charlie, I'm going to announce this, so you may want to tell Ling before the dinner, so she doesn't hear about it from me, you know, over the podium. So thank you, Ling, and thank you, Charlie. One of the perks of being the National Security Advisor is you have the opportunity to meet extraordinary Americans. And we have two of them here tonight. You heard from Ross Jr., but Sarah and Ross Perot are great Americans. Thank you for everything you've done for this country. And like the Nixons who got to see their dad and their grandfather, it was great seeing Ross Sr. on, we all grew up with him, watching him on TV, and it was great seeing him. And I know it's probably tough on you that he's not here tonight, but I know he's looking down on us, and so is President Nixon. They're looking, and so are the POWs that aren't with us tonight. They're looking down, and they're proud of everybody here. And so when I reached out, we wanted to do an exhibit with tonight's dinner. And the exhibit, everything costs money these days. And so we turned to the pros to tell the story. And I probably shouldn't say this. I sent an email. I said, Ross, you know, and I'd gotten to know Ross a little bit before becoming chairman of the library. Can you support this? Is this something you'd be willing to support? And he wrote back and said, we'll handle it. Of course, I didn't tell him how much it was. So we didn't take advantage of him. And, but we're grateful for that, and we're grateful for the support over the many years, not just tonight, but over the many years that your family and your dad has supported the POWs and the library. Now, talking about hostages, there's something the pros know is, you know, they supported the POWs like nobody else did. But they also know something about getting hostages home. So if you haven't read Ken Follett's On the Wings of Eagles, go and find out about what the pros did and what Ross Perot Sr. did to get hostages out of Iran. And that's not an easy task. I know it. I was able to get some people home from Iran. Unfortunately, there's still people that are there that I couldn't get home, but it was pretty amazing. So read Ken Follett's book if you get a chance. Now, Richard Nixon said that you were courageous to the POWs. You were courageous in your actions, but you are most courageous in your captivity. And his personal diaries show on a daily basis that he was thinking about you and how humbled he was by your heroism. The president was overwhelmed by the plaque that you presented him that night that we've been watching tonight, this evening. And for those of you, I know the POWs know what it said, but many others may not. It was inscribed, our leader, our comrade, Richard the Lionhearted. He treasured that gift. Now, as we bring this 50th anniversary dinner to a close, let me share a passage from President Nixon's memoirs as he spoke about the first night that we had at the White House. Well, I saw it on TV as a kid, but that you had at the White House. Trish had it at the White House. Trish was only 1 year old at that event. The show did not end until after midnight, he wrote, and the dancing went until after 2 o'clock. But Pat and I went upstairs around 12:30. I kissed her goodnight, and then I went to the Lincoln sitting room. And as I sat before the fire, listening to the sounds of the music and the laughter coming up from downstairs, I felt this was one of the greatest nights of my life. There were no words then, and there are really none now, that could describe the joy and the satisfaction that I felt at the thought that I had played a role in bringing these men back home, and that they, who were so completely courageous and admirable, genuinely seemed to consider the decisions I had made about the war to have been courageous and admirable ones. I'll leave it with that. May God bless you. May God bless the United States of America. And as we close, can I invite you to not to join me, because I can't sing, as my wife will tell you, but together can we sing God Bless America.